Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, brought to you by BuckeyeHuddle.com. I'm Marc Givler here with Kevin Noon. Commitment edition of the Skull Session Podcast today. I think we expected we might be doing a few of these over the next week or two. And sure enough, before the weekend even really gets started, the Buckeyes have landed top 100 defensive end London Merritt out of IMG Academy, originally from Atlanta, Georgia. This was a guy that Kevin and I have talked about numerous times over the past couple of years. We've seen him at camps. We've been down to his high school in Atlanta a couple times. He's been a kind of a staple of Southern swing. And again, we'll continue to be here in the next few weeks when we get into that. But huge commitment for Ohio State to kick off what we're expecting to be a really massive recruiting weekend for the Buckeyes. And again, top 100 defensive end, London Merritt in the fold. Kevin, I think we felt this was coming, but maybe not until June. And here we are at like the end of March, and he just said, "Yeah, I'm just going to go for it."
Yeah, he kind of tipped people off a little bit earlier today. He did post out there, "I think it's time," or something along those lines, half in emojis. I mean, but you never know. It might be time for a ham sandwich. Don't the
Top
Twitter
25 list.
Twitter sleuths think that they have it all figured out, but it doesn't always work that way. But with London Merritt, I was like, well, this could happen. And then I got sidetracked and I was doing some laundry and everything else. And then I saw the commitment edit happen. I'm like, well, we best get to recording. But this is huge news. I think that people see a big recruiting weekend and their level of keeping scores, how many commits come directly out of the weekend. And that's not always how things work out, especially still relatively early in the cycle. But London Merritt ends really before the weekend starts per se. And now he is going to be able to be another recruiter. And I know I've said this on other shows that your commitment may not be stronger at any point in the moment you commit. So you're going to have a very motivated guy on campus trying to work other guys. So this I think is a big deal.
No doubt. This was planned on London's part to get the weekend going and to kind of get this huge weekend off to a great start. Tarvis Alford's announcing tomorrow, Saturday, so this could be a big weekend. And this could be, again, we talked about it on the podcast. We had to run about an hour earlier than we anticipated because we needed to get it out there once Merritt committed. But we talked about this earlier today about just the momentum building and how we could see this kind of leading to another positive run of commitments. And so here we are just a couple hours later talking about London Merritt. Defensive end has been a kind of a much maligned position of recruiting angst for Ohio State fans the last couple of years. 3 years ago, it came down to the wire. They got their guys, but it came down to the very end. 2 years ago, they didn't. This past year, they didn't hit their number. They got Edric Houston, but were unable to kind of seal the deal on a few other guys. So here's an early one. And it's funny. I think we talked about this. I don't know I forget if it was with you or I was on the morning show with Tom, but we talked about that this might be a little less stressful this year in terms of, getting all the way to November, December, being, oh boy, I hope we go 3 for 3 on defensive ends down the stretch. Cause if not, we're totally screwed here. And I kind of mentioned that this could be a little bit less stressful this year. There's some guys, Justin Hill's another guy who's out there who is expecting to announce in July at some point. This could be a little less stressful down the stretch this year where they get a couple of these guys early and then you can chase those other guys late if you want to, but you're not so dependent on having to land them or land all of them. For me, this is a big one just in terms of like letting everyone kind of relax. I mean, the fans, of course, can relax, are never going to relax, but like the coaches can like sit there and be like, okay, we got one. Like we don't have to like push all our eggs in 2 baskets in December. I just think this is good timing.
Yeah, it is important to at least get most of the way to your count early if possible, especially as Ohio State and missing your number for a couple of years. And only one school can land a kid, and finishing second place doesn't mean anything. It's a good narrative, and we gave it our best shot, and unfortunately we didn't land the kid. Well, it's a hell of a lot better when you do land the kid, and they did land the kid. And he's super talented kid, and I think that when you look at him and Zahir Mathis so far in the class, and some of the other names that could be joining them, that this may be the haul that they finally had been waiting for. And I may have said this in the show that we recorded earlier today, that this is a kind of commitment that if it happened in December, people would be over the moon. People are going to be over the moon right now, and we'll forget about it in 2-3 weeks or something, and we'll move on to the next fire to tend to.
Yeah, now it's going to be, where's that offensive tackle? It's going to be, it'll be all offensive linemen from here on out. But this is a tremendous start, getting Mathis and Merritt at the same, in the same cycle, as I'm pretty sure the cat just obliterated our living room. So that's great. So yeah, it's just going to be, I think, a lot less stressful down the stretch for Ohio State. And I think, again, getting two guys of this caliber this early is it puts them in just a different dimension than what they've had to be in the last 3 or 4 years with defensive line recruiting. All right, let's get to the film. Merritt, he's a little bit what you would call, I guess, traditionally undersized, about 6'2.5", but boy, if we're going to see the jack position, he is tailor-made for it. He is super, super explosive, very strong. He's about 235, 245 pounds, and in that range already. He's just a very strong at the point of attack. He's able to shed blocks at that size. And I'll throw out a name that I think most people will be pretty familiar with. I'm not going to go too far back in the time machine. Reminds me of Jonathan Cooper. Both high motor guys, not 6'5", 6'6", both very strong against the run, despite, being quote unquote a little bit undersized. Just explosive athletes that can run. They can do a little bit of coverage. They can drop into zones if you need to. And, Jonathan Cooper's coming off an 8.5 sack season with the Denver Broncos. So I think that would be a pretty nice comparison if London Merritt turns out to be an NFL guy who gets 8.5 sacks in a season. But again, I love this pickup, and I love his attitude, his work ethic, his compete level. He goes to IMG to challenge himself, to make himself even better, going against those big linemen they have every year. And just a guy who's always working at his game. And like, we've seen him already. We've seen him line up on the edge. We've seen him line up inside. We've seen him line up as a stand-up edge. We've seen him line up as a linebacker just in this first couple, 60 to 80 seconds of this film. So this is just, to me, a perfect complement to what they've already got with Zahir Mathis, who's maybe the bigger, more traditional defensive end at 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, and I think that people get concerned when he did transfer to IMG, just because, again, we talked about so much of this on a show earlier today, that IMG is not necessarily a school that favors one college or another college. I mean, it feeds a lot of different places, but you get this guy who is going to be testing himself, is going to be able to go against, his practices are going to be incredible there at IMG with what he's going to be able to do. And now that he's committed, he will have the chance really to kind of pick Larry's brain and do some of those things that you can do as a committed prospect. I mean, obviously there are limitations as to what you can do, but he is a fit for what I think Larry wants, and certainly what I think Jim Knowles sees this defense being. And that's what's important there. So this is, just cannot be overstated as to, how important this is for a multitude of reasons, but first and foremost, because Merritt is just that good.
Yeah. And this is kind of the perfect, you kind of alluded to it there. This is kind of the perfect marriage of, we talk about guys that like Larry Johnson recruits, like the pure defensive linemen. We've talked about guys who maybe James Laurinaitis or Jim Knowles are more involved in, like a Justin Hill, who's kind of a hybrid. And this is a guy that I think everyone kind of came together on and was excited about and knew that he was going to be a priority for them. And so there's no there's been so much weird talk about, are all the defensive coaches agreement on scheme and this and that. This was a guy that was unanimous that this was a priority target for them. He's been a priority target for them for, gosh, over a year now. And again, great academic kid as well. Just, you don't survive at Woodward Academy for 3 years if you don't have your grades in order. It's a great academic high school. And so it's really a great all-around get for Ohio State. And again, what a way to kick off the weekend. You're going to have Tavian St. Clair in for help with the offense. London Merritt's now going to get in there with some of these defensive guys. They got some defensive linemen on campus. They got a lot of defensive backs on campus, which we talked about in our weekend preview. So just a great start to what could be a great recruiting weekend for the Buckeyes. Kevin, anything to add here?
No, I mean, I think that this is a great start. And as I had said earlier, a lot of people only keep score with how many commits are landed, within 72 hours of the recruiting weekend. And that's kind of an unfair way of handling it. But having one in pocket already, feeling really good about where TJ Alford stands. I mean, even though that's in a little bit of a different situation, he is not, somebody who is on a visit right now, but to come out of this and just be saying, okay, Ohio State should be sitting at 2 once Alford makes his decision, and we'll let him make his decision, though we, kind of feel good about Ohio State's chances. Then if Ohio State gets to 3 or 4, I mean, if you sit there and you get somebody else who moves, if Ohio State goes full court press on Bo Jackson or somebody like that, I mean, this really turns into into an amazing weekend and going to be one of those points that we're going to look back at this class and circle on the calendar and say, this is really where a lot of Ohio State's, class started to come together, not looking past the 7 guys that were already in the class prior to the move made by London Merritt.
Yep. So we'll continue to stay on top of things throughout the weekend. Will we have another one of these tomorrow? Will we have a special commitment edition tomorrow? We shall see. You'll have to wait and see and tune in and find out. But great start to the weekend for Ohio State. Again, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Or if you're more of a listener and not a watcher, you can go, whether it's Spotify or iTunes, wherever, give us a 5-star rating so that other Ohio State fans can find us. Would appreciate that. But thanks, everyone, for watching and listening, and we'll see you over on the Huddle board as we discuss this further.